I was very lucky to grow up seeing films through my father's eyes and lens. I have to really thank him for making me sit down to watch his favourite actors like Richard Burton, Kirk Douglas, Oliver Reed and many others, and see these great films. And looking back at these films we love, I think it's such an important thing to do. It conjures up memories of times gone by and some way we can connect with the humans on the screen. And I say humans, not actors, as ultimately that's what they are, playing out scenes before us in these long takes without CGI, as if we're sitting in the front row of a small theatre and they were performing just for us. This is how I felt while watching A Place in the Sun. The story follows George Eastman, played by Montgomery Clift, and he's a loner, who in the first scene is seen hitching a ride on the side of a motorway wearing a beaten up leather jacket. He's looking a bit lost. Suddenly a beautiful white Cadillac drives past. You think it's going to stop, but of course it whizzes straight past him. He's eventually picked up by an old wreck, and this beautifully sets the scene for what's about to come. The director of A Place in the Sun is George Stevens, who apparently put the actors through a very different experience. He would film every rehearsal to ensure he has the most real reactions from the actors. He would then print the film and show the results to the actors, direct the scene, and then replay the scene, doing many more takes over and over until they've got it almost to perfection. By doing this, he would have the best of both worlds. He would have the spontaneous first take and the somewhat perfected but less spontaneous later takes. And it took him over 1 year to go through all the film and finally edit the picture, which then won him the Best Director in 1952. So when George arrives at his destination, he goes to work for his wealthy uncle at his mill. There he meets a very willing and flirtatious Alice as an assembly line worker, who seems besotted by this strange chap who's just entered her world. This could have been a perfect love story, but a chance meeting with Angela, played by Elizabeth Taylor, a wealthy socialite many years younger than him, captures his eye and sends the whole love story into a whole new direction. When we first see Elizabeth Taylor, she literally explodes onto the screen, not like anything I've seen in any film in recent years. She is alive in the moment and she immediately attracts your attention. At this time she was only 19, but already a solidified star in Hollywood. Apparently she felt intimidated working alongside Montgomery Clift, but none of this is apparent in the film. She is controlling every scene. It's the most electrifying performance I have ever seen, and it's all done with minute detail and subtlety. It's all beneath the eyes. Montgomery Clift is also strange. You're not sure if he's acting or just really shy, but he's purposefully underplaying his character, which makes the whole film even more alluring. The assembly line worker, Alice, is played by Shelly, who is also a very established actor at this point, and she had to fight for the part. And in many ways, in my opinion, Shelly steals the film from two of the biggest actors in Hollywood by playing the downtrodden victim. Apparently she complained of the way that she had to look and act in the film to the director George Stevens, who demanded she look terrible and totally different to the beautiful Elizabeth Taylor. There was always tension on the set, but she seemed to work with George and grow in the film. She played her character in a way that was far from obvious, and even Montgomery Clift was complaining that she wasn't fitting the mould. This all adds to the recipe of what Charlie Chaplin calls the greatest American film of all time. This was a Paramount picture, and was first released 20 years earlier under the name American Tragedy, the same name as the book it was adapted from. The film flopped, so the studio was nervous that this film was cursed and doomed to fail, even with these great names attached. How wrong could they have been? So going back to the story, while the story unravels, you are in awe of the sets, the camera work, the scene staging. When Angela persuades George to her lake house for some water skiing, the boats sound like fighter planes as they whiz past. It's a good example of how they use sound, noises, and sometimes setting a scene to convey subliminal messaging. Can you remember when I spoke about the Cadillac in the first scene? That was Angela driving that car. So she was there in the first scene with Montgomery driving straight past him. It's little things like this which I think you could keep finding out about this film. It's got so much depth and detail and can be watched and rewatched. I particularly enjoyed this song playing on Alice's radio when they first got together in Alice's house. And if anyone knows the name of this song, please write below.
Yeah, I wish I could ask you in, but we'd have to keep the music awful low.
So much of the artistry and craftsmanship never takes the eyes away from the acting and the story, and I think this is what makes the film so special. The character George Eastman is in an impossible situation towards the end of the film, and one we can almost all relate to. It's the conflict that we have inside ourselves that really makes us root for Montgomery Clift, as much as despise him. Deep down we are all good and we are all bad, and in this story his actions were good, but his thoughts weren't. Can you be guilty for your thoughts alone? I for one thought this made sense and he should have been guilty, even though most of the jury probably believed his course of events were true. Anne Reeve also needs a mention, who plays George Eastman's mother. At the end of the film, as a religious woman, she asks her son to think of death as another step, to not be afraid. She's not angry at him, she's understanding. It's such a brilliant, small part and adds to the turmoil George Eastman must be going through. The final scene though is Elizabeth's, a 19-year-old actress blowing the film apart with a simmering monologue that would destroy most of the actors today and make them never want to act again. It's simply that good. This film shows me, as time goes by, certain films get better as they age. They show us what film is truly about. I would love to hear your thoughts on the performances, the story, and whether this film affected you in any way. By watching this, somehow I felt connected to my dad, and a time well before I was born. As always, please subscribe and please comment down below. We want to review these films because we want to start discussions and we want to bring them back as much as we can. Thanks so much for listening, and there's lots more to come.